Good afternoon, everyone, and for those of you streaming live, we are at the Happy New Year, January 10th regular Town Council meeting. We will call the meeting to order, followed by the President's Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If those who would bow their heads, please do so. Loving and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all of your blessings that you have so graciously bestowed upon us in this wonderful town. We continue to seek your wisdom, guidance, courage, and strength. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Give us insight to lead with integrity, that our decisions may reflect what is right and good. Help us to make decisions that are good for all, and help us to treat all of our neighbors with love and respect. Grant us the humility to always seek your will in all that we say and do. Ms. Frazier's in-laws are having some personal issues in Miami. Please pray for her family and help to have a resolve in the positive way. And please pray for all those who are in need as we meet here today. In this we pray, amen. Amen. We have adoption of the agenda. Mr. Steves, any changes?
Yes, ma'am. Under consent agenda, item number 6, the request for approval. The person who has made that request has asked for it to be removed from tonight's agenda, so we would ask council to remove that.
Okay.
One other note is the public hearings that were scheduled by the Low Country Council of Governments. I think they made a mistake and advertised it for 6 p.m. for the public hearing, so we're going to monitor that and try to do them at that time.
So if we seem like we're going way ahead, we'll use my discretion and move that down as we get closer to 6 to give everyone an opportunity to come in. And for those of you who are here, if you would not mind, it's very important to sign in. Well, she's not here. We don't have a sign-in sheet, do we?
I have it already. It's sitting out there.
There's a sign-in sheet. This public hearing, and Michelle Knight, we have done a lot of our projects for low to moderate income families, our CDBG grants, our sewer, everything that's really helped all of our neighbors. It is important that we do a sign-in sheet to see that there was public attendance. So if you don't mind, if you leave after public comment or before you leave tonight, just sign your name, all of you. I'd really appreciate it. We do have an executive session, but before that, let's move to adopt that agenda per Mr. Steve.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we have one small executive session item, which we'll go to. Is there a motion to go into executive session for personnel matters regarding an associate judge appointment? That's FOIA 3470A1.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will go in there and be right back out with action. votes were cast that we do have action from executive session, which as soon as I have a quorum, I will make that motion. And then we will move right into the meeting. I talked to, we have a very crazy schedule right now. I'll talk about it with those of you in here. Good evening. We meet at 4 when we have executive session. We meet at 5 when we don't have executive session. I think it's very confusing. It's confusing to me, so it has to be confusing. I polled Fred, since everyone else was in the back room town.
You polled Fred?
Yes, I polled Fred. I think we should keep these meetings at I thought 4, but at 5, whether we have executive session or not. I think it's just too confusing to go up an hour, because the goal is not to have executive session, quite frankly.
Yes.
So, is anyone, we'll start just keeping it 5, it gets regular, people know, we don't have confusion with presentations when the executive session goes shorter, because we really aren't set up to just take a break until 5 o'clock.
Right.
So, any opposition to that, just from now on, executive session or not, council will start at 5.
Question. So, in the past, we've had some hours to go 3.5, 4 hours. And if you have an executive session that starts at 5, a lot of people are still gonna be sitting here at a length of time. Is it not something we couldn't judge? In other words, make the time 5, but if you have a very heavy agenda and you speculate that it's gonna go a while, that maybe you make executive session come in that particular month, early or not?
I think we adjust our agenda based on the workload. I think we put too much stuff on the agenda and it causes us to be here for 4 hours. So we need to push things out. There's nothing urgent that's going on like we had 10 years ago when there's so much development was going on. So we just need to trim down our agenda.
But we do have a lot. We're doing UDO edits. I mean, we have a pipeline right now through the next 3 months.
Some of those we can put in the workshop.
We're talking about 2 meetings a month or more. I get it. I just don't want, like last month, we were out and all of a sudden everyone no one knew, it's no one's fault, wandered off. I'm like, wait a minute, we have a meeting, because we have to continue our meeting once it starts at 4. I don't know a good way. I mean, we've got a month to think about it, but y'all are here.
I'll roll with the flow, whatever, but I look back at the first 8 years or so I was here, and the reason we changed it to 4 o'clock was because it was 10 o'clock getting through, and when we go into executive session, most of the time these items that we're discussing, sometimes they need a lot of conversation. Tonight it didn't, and when you sit out here for 3 or 4 hours and you go in there, everybody's kind of burnt out, and maybe not as sharp. I know I'm not, once I've sat here for 3 hours as I would be at the beginning. So, time-wise, I don't care. Whichever you want to put it on the front. We had it on the back before,
We want
and
to keep it on
everybody
the
said it was
front.
too late,
Yeah.
so we started it earlier.
Well, it's
The
front.
workload, look at the workload, we can, as long as if we're going back there, no need for the general public to be sitting out here for an hour. waiting for us.
However,
Now, like today, yes.
Well, again,
This is the first time I think this
I'm
has
thinking
happened.
of public comment and awards and things, if we have an hour of executive session, it pushes everybody back further, is the only reason. That's what I'm saying. I think maybe it has to be somewhat of a judgment call. If you think there's a lot on the docket, we can make an exception.
could we put a timeline that we just have to monitor? Maybe it's the executive session stuff we just got to monitor, because I don't think we should go past 5. And I know times we have. It's not anything we have to deal with today, but just think about it, because it's either this way or it's the other way. And we're walking out here at 5:30 and we have people that are residents in the room thinking we're starting at 5 and we're starting at 5:30. So,
And 2, you wouldn't want the gentleman who was just here to hang out until 9 o'clock to go in there and speak with you guys for 10 minutes either, so.
I like the executive session up front. I really like it. I'm more on the 4 or 5, where can we be standardized?
I'm liking the executive on the front side as well.
Well, let's keep it the way it is. We have executive session, we'll figure out what we need. We can always put 4:30 or 4, okay. Okay, it's nice to get y'all's input. There will be action from the executive session. It's regarding the appointment of an associate judge. Is there a motion to appoint James Andrew Smith as the associate judge to work under Judge Bush? The contract would be signed by our town manager, and our thoughts were to keep it concurrent with the time frame that Judge Bush is under, which started in January, to keep that contract within the same time frame of 3 years. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Did that make sense? Okay. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. We can go through minutes. The minutes from December 13th, 2022. Did anyone see any changes that need to be made? Not, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, this is where we wiggle around. Who is here? We can do the Martin Luther King, the Student of the Month. Okay. The Hilton Head, the Development Agreement update. Not here. You can do it.
We can do that, and we can
Let's do
do
that Martin Luther King proclamation.
that in the workshop item, which is talking about.
No, I was gonna do
Between those two, that should get us to.
proclamation, Heather's update, and then we can jump into workshop, and hopefully others will be coming in, and we will not do public comment until after 5. Okay, Martin Luther King presentation. I'm guessing Bridget would have accepted it, but I'll read it up. And again, this is being videoed and live streamed. Martin Luther King, the holiday is Monday, and that is an official holiday now, and through the town, as well as Juneteenth, which the town made a holiday before it became official. There's some great information on the site, Bluffton MLK, owned activities, and I don't have it on my calendar, but we'll have a walk. Is it Michael C. Riley, the program?
Let me look,
1:30.
at 12 o'clock in Ulmer Auditorium, and then at 1:30, the march will begin in the lineup.
Right, and that's how it used to be, at Ulmer Auditorium, and then the march would go through town, and they always end up at, Frederick Park, right? So, I will read the proclamation. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. proclamation. Whereas January 15th, 1929 was the birthday of a great American, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who gave his life for love, peace, and justice. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration is sponsored and hosted annually by the Bluffton Martin Luther King Jr. Observance Committee. And whereas the town of Bluffton is committed to pursuing the ideals of justice, love, and peace. And in Bluffton's 39th celebration, the theme shall be Together We Can Be the Dream. Now therefore, I, Lisa Sulka, Mayor of the town of Bluffton, along with Bluffton Town Council, do hereby designate and proclaim Monday, January 16th, 2023, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the town of Bluffton. Therefore, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Bluffton to be affixed this 10th of January 2023. Please look on our site and we'll get social media out by Monday. I'm going to hold up on you until more people come. Jeez. Talk about your dancing over the weekend. Next, we'll jump to item 4 under presentations, Town of Bluffton Annual Development Agreement Update. Heather, good evening. I just use the staff report. Yeah, and I'm sorry this is a little disjointed, but.
Okay. All right, those numbers are really tiny.
But this is on our agenda site online where it can be printed, downloaded, enhanced, everything.
Yes, I can. And what I do want to say is, so on an annual basis, I come before you and just kind of give you a snapshot of where we are with our development agreements in terms of some of the projects, some of our build-out percentages. And as you all know, 92% of our land is within a planned development and under a development agreement. So essentially a contract, we know how much residential we're going to get, how much commercial, what the public dedications are and things like that. However, with that said, comes time to time, there can be amendments to those agreements. For example, Palmetto Bluff was the only amendment to the development agreement we did this past year in terms of the docks. Now, sometimes, we hear 92%, so forget there's 8% that lies outside of the development agreement. So that's under a hybrid of traditional zoning and form-based code. So those areas are primarily the Old Town Historic District, kind of the surrounding areas, like where the Walk subdivision is on Burnt Church Road, the Buck Island Simmonsville neighborhood plan, the areas that are covered by that, as well as the Goethe Schultz neighborhood plan, and some other little pockets here and there. But, and all of that you can see for the public that is here and watching online. We do have our permit finder map that we continue to refine and update to make sure that all of those developments and where they are in the permit process shows up. So we continue to kind of add more and more. We really started with putting projects on that permit finder map that are active and under review, and then once approved, they kind of would go away. We would add new flags. We've tried to tweak that and keep them there until they get their kind of final COs and things like that. So all that information is there on the website. That's a little bit harder to say where we're at in terms of build out, because since that's form-based code, it really is the flexibility of the developer under our guidelines. But the other 92%, we know what we have. One thing I do want to highlight, and something that you'll hear different in the coming years, is if I were to zoom in here, just to give you an example on the expiration dates, the development agreements, the first one is getting ready to expire in 2024, and that is Bluffton Village. So that's where the library is on Bluffton Road. So what exactly that looks like when that expires, I can't tell you all the specifics, but I can tell you that we are already looking into that. Essentially, the base zoning does not change, so until and unless council rezones it, it still will remain planned development. However, what we'll be doing in the next year and a half is to make sure that all the obligations of the development agreement have been met. So has the developer done everything that they laid out? For example, some of the other agreements have connections, interconnectivity that's shown, or public space that's dedicated and things like that. So we'll make sure that all of that has been met, and then I'm sure we'll have several several meetings with Terry Finger and Richardson LaBruce to kind of outline what's next, because this will be the first one that actually is ready to expire. You'll see too these dates. Some of these dates are really far off. The longest of which is 2057 for Palmetto Bluff and the Schultz Tract, and that's one in part because the state essentially put a stop clock timeout on all permits and plans when the economy kind of slowed down a bit. So they really took that out of our hands and just stopped all permits and plans for a period of 9 years. So that was something that kind of was on hold. There had been talk about doing that again because of COVID, but I don't believe they did that. So we're carrying on as is.
But who follows that? Is that something municipal association can follow, or when do they have a time they have to enact it? Could it be this year?
I believe they could do that at any time if the state decides. So we do monitor that, and like I said, that's how we knew about the COVID potential, but as far as I know, that has not been enacted or approved at this point. So, but that's really nothing that we can do. When the state says it's on hold, they're on hold, and then we just, again, make sure that we've acknowledged that and move forward. But like I said, the first one's Bluffton Village, which right now they're at 78% build out, so there is still some commercial left to be used. They may choose not to build it, they don't have to, but that is what they could essentially build a little bit more out there. And then, sorry,
Just
go
a
ahead.
quick question, Heather. So if they don't build it by October of 24, we can say, no, you can't?
That's where it gets a little sticky. I think then it does essentially go away, yes.
That would be our position.
But then you have empty land that's undevelopable, which is private property rights, and I think who helped us with that? Was that McNair that helped us? Was it
It was Franny Heiser. Franny Heiser.
No,
Francis Cantwell.
Francis Cantwell. Right.
The problem is there's just not a lot of law about what happens when these expire.
No.
the zoning district will control. But so in answer to your question,
So basically, when they expire, don't mean anything.
No, it sounds like they do. We don't have to, they're, say it's 400,000 square feet of commercial left. I'm guessing on the 24th that hadn't been permitted, it's up to what we allow. It's more form-based code at that point. of some sort.
Most likely from what, and again, like I went back and I'm clearly not an attorney, but went and looked at the state law and the Development Agreement Act, and they really don't speak to what happens after it expires. So it's silent on that. What we've, again, our stand is that the base zoning still would say planned development. So the uses would still be the same uses that were approved as part of the agreement, but they would have to follow the current code.
Whatever zoning is in place at that time.
And that's where we have a year and a half to figure that out, so.
I understand our
It's
position,
definitely difficult.
and they could always challenge it to the legal system. And the legislators are real big about taking private property, you know, so I don't know how, I mean, none of us know where that would end up. I guess we deal with it when we get there.
well, we will be dealing with it over the next 18 months to try to figure out exactly where we are. So we will be prepared midsummer of '24 with our position and iron out as hard as we can. I understand what the goal is, but we have to do it legally.
I'll be interested in all the things that were, yes, we will do during the development agreement, were they done? You're right, connectivity, has all the land, like Verdier, finally, but has the land all been dedicated that needed to be dedicated, and easements and things like that?
Staff is well aware of all these issues. We've been talking about them, and we will continue to talk with the municipal association, other land use lawyers, and we will do what is right, legal, and fair.
Right, and like I said, this is kind of uncharted territory from what I've seen, just because the Development Agreement Act is so recent that I don't know as if anyone has good examples of what
While
happens.
you're on expiration date, why is New Riverside not applicable on expiration? Or did you just not find a date? Because I thought they all had some term on it.
So that is a PUD, not a, it's split between Palmetto Bluff and Jones. There, we can show you here.
So it's not under a development agreement?
It's-
Or it's somewhere, but we'll go right there, it's somewhere between the expiration of the two? So Jones, it's either gonna expire at the 39 or 57.
right here.
And you know which areas are, okay.
Right, this is what I was pulling up here.
Mm.
Oops, goodness. I was gonna scroll down for you to show that summary here. So.
No, it's-
Those dates seem more one-sided, don't they?
I don't know how they were picked. I guess it was from size and maybe density,
Yeah, I don't know how it happened.
phasing in, maybe. I see that.
There we go. This is helpful for you as well.
But there are dates, you just have a morph between two.
Yeah, it's just more, so it's a little bit harder to
It's okay.
put there, and that one's a little bit further out, so we've got some time. But the first two that we really need to concentrate on is Bluffton Village and then Village at Verdier, which are two of the smaller development agreements, so at least they're a little bit more manageable to figure out where we're at as far as that goes. But did want to let you know, it's definitely on our minds. We've already started talking about it, figuring it out so that we're not, a month out trying to figure out what that means. So we should be well prepared and be able to well inform all of the property owners and the developers of what their clear expectations are moving forward. So
That's also
Stay
gonna
tuned
mean
for
we'll probably
more.
be bringing stuff to y'all
yes,
to approve as we put things in place
So.
to handle it,
Right. But just kind of, I know I kind of went through some of the sheets, but there's a lot of information and numbers in there. A lot of it was presented and given to you at strategic planning. We try to keep a handle on that. What I will say is that we are starting to slow down in terms of our pace of how quickly the developments are being built out. So last year, when I was before you, we were at 52% build out, and that's overall build out residential, an average between residential and commercial. Now we're at 54%, so we're going,
That's
Sorry,
just
go ahead.
I thought the overall was like 72%.
that's the overall residential. We're already, the
Oh, you're
overall
just talking about
residential,
residential.
yes. Residential, we're more built out. So again, and then, you know, as time goes on, we tweak the data depending on what we're trying, you know, just those details that the story that we're trying to tell. We didn't have it broken down in percentages prior to 2020, which we certainly can do that. But in 2020, just to give you an idea of how fast we were moving forward, it was 46%. So it was a little bit faster just from that 2020 to 2021. So it's slowing down a little bit.
And for clarity, and I've always asked this question, so it's redundant, but it's not actually just, the percentage does not reflect just actually homes built. It reflects permits issued included into the homes built.
Correct. And what we've done now is we keep track of those two different statistics. So you'll see here, and I'm just zooming in so you can see the heading of what we do track. We've got the build out percentage, so that's more of what you're going to see, what's permitted, and then the units too that are held by the Development Rights Bank, by the town. And then also the utilized. The utilized is what you may not see in the actual built environment. That's what you see on paper. So those are subdivisions and lot lines that are already done. So that's going to be a little bit different, but yes, you're correct. So the build out percentage is what we typically refer to. And this is where you'll see, I think I'd have to scroll over so you can see all the different development agreements, but that's how we have that separated out between residential versus non-residential and commercial. So again, this is a lot of information. Sorry. No.
So at the 76% development agreements, residential percentage build out, what percent over here, where am I looking to see the actual as houses built?
So what we could do, I don't have it broken down on this. What I could do is show you, we could do a report that shows COs or the certificates of occupancy that have been issued. So that's something that I can break out
Or
for
maybe
future reports.
a percentage difference between the two is simple enough?
I can put that in the monthly report for next
That
month.
would be
so you
like
can see that.
permits with no CO yet,
Pardon me?
correct?
Essentially, you'd be pulling those out. We can show you that.
I think it's something that, because I think we're gonna find, if we're all still living in here, as we get closer to these really high density areas where they have more density than they're ever gonna build, I think it's also what is granted, but we know they're not gonna build everything they're granted. So that, I mean, I'm tickled we're seeing 80% utilized and 70, I mean, we're ticking up there to where we're starting to see some leveling off finally, knowing that commercial does follow.
Right, and that's certainly what we are seeing there when you see that 76%, and then you can kind of dive into the individual development agreements a little bit closer. Palmetto Bluff is the one that's the scroll over. That's the one that is only at 32%. Or excuse me, rather. Yes, 32%.
20 development agreement percentage built out, 20 development rights percentage built out.
And if there's a better way you'd like to see this in future years, I'm happy to do it. It's just so many numbers that.
So many numbers, but it's.
But, and again, all of this is in the packets, and we do keep it on the website, and I do go back to look at it. But Bree does a great job of keeping all these numbers in check. So, but we can do that, the COs versus non-COs, and those will be the completed constructions. That's all I had. Happy to answer any questions or highlight any of the attachments, whatever you'd like.
I guess I brought this up with Stephen, just I know this is all happening, and I think it's good we're getting a handle on as we get closer, and we're gonna have a little bit of a break, but I think it's gonna be good to get a handle on what happens with the first one coming up. And just double checking to make sure everything's crossed and dotted, and how do we get rid, what happens with Bluffton Village if they have, how many residential do they have? They didn't have many.
32 left.
It says building permits issued 32. And
Remaining for development,
38.
6.
So they have 6. can those just go away? You know, what do we do with all of that? They can only transfer them within their development agreement, right?
Correct.
So they only have 6 that haven't got permits for?
They probably don't have 6 lots.
Right, for the residential. And then if you go over here, they have, let's see, what do they have remaining? They still have some commercial, or non-residential rather.
Where do you see the remaining? What's remaining? Where do you see utilize? Remaining.
Should
So
be
they
the
have
last
6
column, yeah.
and they have 59,000 commercial. They have to find land to put all that on within their development agreement to utilize it, so.
But they can always come like some of the others are asking us to utilize the commercial for residential.
Sure, they could.
They don't have land to build it on. If they don't have the land to build it on, then it doesn't
Oh, I
matter.
know.
Right, this is what they have per approved, and they could request more as things get closer. We might see more of that, but this is all the reasons why we want to get ahead of it sooner rather than later.
Of course, something we all realize, the other correlation to this is the budget. As this slows down, the budget's going to be impacted more and more negatively every year going forward.
Correct, that there's a lot of implications, like, for example, we wouldn't be collecting those development agreement fees anymore.
Are we
But we would be collecting more tax base because there's more units that we'd be, and more commercial space that we would be getting.
Are we, is everyone up to date on fees and all?
We are up to date as far as yes, as of now, we are up to date.
Anything else, guys? Thank you.
Thank you.
Will, you came in, we got out of executive session early. We can move on to a workshop. Do you have another group coming, or are you doing the presentation?
I have a presentation to do, but I think the rest of my team was not planning to be here until 5 o'clock.
That's okay.
So we can wait.
Because I want to make sure whoever's here can do it. We can do our, we're kind of playing around with our agenda. So we're moving to, the workshop item, which is the Sarah Riley Hooks update, and that's item 12, section 1. And Glenn, I saw you come in. Good evening, how are you?
Glenn and I are tag teaming
Oh,
this
Tim,
this
I
evening.
didn't see your name.
That's okay. So I'm going to start off with y'all and then pass it over to Glenn for some technical information. Just as a reminder in general, the Sarah Riley Hooks property is on the contributing sources in the historic district and purchased by the town in December 28th of 2020. This has come to the CIP team with fiscal year 23 budget and funding to do some surveying work and master planning along the way. In going ahead and doing the master planning and conceptual planning, we came to you in November of last year and began to initially discuss during strategic planning potential uses that council might see fit for both the structure itself as well as the property. And we used that feedback to go ahead and create a public survey that was distributed in paper at the Arts and Seafood Festival in October and then has been online since then. As of this morning, we have had 138 responses online, and it's still active if folks want to give more input to that. What we're currently seeing in the responses that we've received, and I'll go to the graphics, it's written there, is that from what we heard from council, it seems to be corroborated by the general public, the majority of whom live within the town's municipal limits. And for those that may not live in the municipal limits, those majority happen to own business. So we're talking about vested stakeholders here. What we're seeing as feedback is the majority of these folks are looking at seeing the structure itself, the cottage, as an ancillary park and or restroom, classroom area, or museum interpretive center. Additionally, for the grounds, for potential uses that the public has seemed to deem extremely important, what we're seeing as priorities are flexible use open lawn space, as well as potential boardwalk access to UG Cove. So this starts to inform us from a staff perspective and having that discussion with you, what potential uses do we really see for the property so that we can properly assess it and go ahead and make sure that we've got those uses available to us as we come up with the design and engineering plans. And to that end, this is when we engaged our cohort across the hall with Glen as historic preservationists to say, okay, what should our next steps be? And at that point in time, knowing that since we've taken it into possession, we've been doing periodic staff assessments of the property. There's been some minor work done, obviously, in stabilizing the grounds to keep them secure as far as vandalism and that kind of thing, as well as roof tarping and what have you that Derek's team has been taking care of. As we move forward, we need something a little bit more in depth, and so Glenn recommended, and we went ahead and engaged with Metters, who has done plenty of other work for us as well, to go on out and do an assessment of the structure. And that's what we're going to come back with Glenn to come and give you an overview of what the findings are, because depending upon your direction, our next steps and our cost estimates that we're going to develop are going to be dependent upon where you would like staff to take this. So at that point, I'm just going to bounce over to Glenn's presentation.
And while you're doing that, there are people that came in, we got out of, y'all keep on it, we got out of executive session early, but we also knew some, the student of the month and presentations, people didn't expect to be here at 5. So we're gonna go through this and then we're gonna jump back. So we're kind of playing ping pong a little bit, just making the best use of everyone's time. So I apologize, but we haven't forgotten anyone. We are on item, workshop item 12, which is the Sarah Riley Hooks update. Okay,
Good evening.
good evening.
So
Happy holidays, New
Yes,
Year's,
thank
whatever.
you. Yeah, happy 2023. So I put together some slides to take you through some of the background information about the resource known as the Sarah Riley Hooks Cottage, located at number 76 Bridge Street. Just to remind you, it is part of the local Old Town Bluffton Historic District. That's the local designated region that's shaded in green. On the map that's highlighted for you is number 16. It is not part of the National Register District, however. It's just a locally designated contributing resource. To remind you, we have a new or fairly new definition of what a contributing resource is. This is something that you all adopted last year. A resource is any building, structure, site, object, feature, or open space as designated by town council that adds to the historic associations, architectural qualities, or archaeological values that relate to the documented significance of the historic district. Contributing resources are shown on the map I just showed you, as approved and amended by town council. To give you some clarification, aerial view of the property highlighted in red on Bridge Street, adjoining the cove. I went back and pulled some photographs. Since I'm the historic preservationist, I love old photographs. The resource was first surveyed in 2001. This was shortly before Sarah Riley Hooks passed away, so she's still in residence at this time in the house. The house was resurveyed as part of the 2008 survey. It's changed somewhat, but not dramatically. And then once again, we surveyed as far as the recent 2019 architectural survey. This was shortly before the property was purchased by the town of Bluffton. Periodically, over the last year and a half, I've gone out and done site inspections, monitoring the condition of the property. As of September 2022, this was the property shortly after we added the tarp to the roof, but it's been secured by the fence. No one's been able to get into the property except for the family of raccoon that are living there right now. At the same time, in September 2022, I noticed that there's some new damage to the west elevation, and you can see here the structure is failing in this part of the building. And then I also included from the other direction, same side, this is the side of the building where the chimney is. So as Kim mentioned, we had Metters go out and do a report. Their summary is based on the findings of the report. The restoration of the rear addition is not feasible. That rear addition is not deemed to be historic nor contributing. That was a later addition. has extensive amount of structural damage observed. Significant portions of the roof, wall, and floor framing exhibit conditions that are beyond repair. That's due to extended exposure to the elements, hence the roof tarp, and an active termite infestation. The structure's preservation would require a nearly complete reconstruction with new materials. In the packet, you'll see some of the photographs of the interior just to prove the point of what we saw when we went through. This is the photograph on the left is showing you where that exterior wall's coming apart, and then other damaged roof, siding, floor, mold, etc. Based on this, the staff is making the following recommendations: to demolish the non-historic northern half of the structure, which is not contributing, and what we call mothballing the historic southern half of the structure until preservation plans are complete and the structure is ready for rehabilitation. This is going to include things like stabilization, further protection from the elements, and for staff to continue to monitor the current condition. I'm open to any questions or comments that you might have.
Questions for Glenn?
You know, I can only say that I said that when I first looked at it before we even bought it, that added on part, you know, the northern section is what you're referring to it, was not really historically significant, and it was just so obvious that it was an add-on. The condition of it, I didn't see where we could really restore that from what I took in, so I agree with your assessment on that part of it. And I did want to ask you too, when I was looking at those ideas and suggestions, it had a kayak launch.
Obviously tide dependent.
Very tight.
Very tide dependent.
I know how far to work.
Yeah.
It would be more of a kayak storage area than a launch area, correct? I mean, I don't see enough water there, maybe on full moon on a 10-foot tide, but. So I don't know why those, or where that came from, but
Some of it in general was just what potentially would people might want to see there, what would be feasible, recognizing that wouldn't be a heavy use for that particular area. But we keep hearing from the public as well that they want more kayak launch sites and accessibility. So just floating it out there, kind of gauging what in general the folks in the community are looking for. So part of the reason why we're workshopping this with you is Glenn has all the great details clearly on what it would take to mothball the building until we come up with the conceptual plans and the engineered final designs. But are we headed in the right direction and in thinking of reflecting the community's highest best use of more open space on the lawn, perhaps picnic, flexible use open lawn? If it's boardwalk access to UG Cove, that might be very something similar perhaps to what we see at Wright Family Park with that boardwalk that comes down. It may potentially, at least at low tide, provide an opportunity for folks to get down and walk around in the cove. On the ground side, are we looking toward the right ideas so that we can begin to move forward with some conceptual planning to bring back and workshop with you? And then on the building side itself, what we're seeing and hearing from the public is that the building potentially could be used for ancillary park use, additional restrooms, classroom, and museum interpretive center. Recognizing each of those not only have building implications, but then also long-term use implications for staffing, operations, that kind of thing. So before we go herding cats, we wanted your input to see what direction you'd like us to start going.
Let's see, but you have questions on either?
Just one thing I'm curious about, with the significant damage that's been in there from termites, infestation, and everything else, what percent, you're gonna mothball what you can work with. What percent of the building can be salvaged? Any idea?
I would hazard a guess at this point that it's going to be a very low number based on what I've been able to see being in there. I'm not sure I can put a number on it, but I'm gonna say the number is rather low at this point of what can be saved. It's gonna be mostly new construction.
Yeah, we said Garvin Garvey. I would say more than Garvin Garvey, less than Wright family.
Yes.
Like somewhere in there, but we know we can, with Metters, we know we do really good at preserving as best we can.
Right.
And the key is for us to get in there and secure it, do what we can so that we can,
Right.
so we don't lose
We've
anything
already
additional.
had significant loss. The goal of mothballing is to arrest that, saving as much as we can at this point.
Yeah, the only other question I have is, this is just a personal thing, it doesn't, not representative of everybody else at the council, but, you know, it's like when you have a historic building through my lens, I think it's always great if we can find a use, whatever the use may be, where people can go inside the building. I always get heartburn, you know, we've got the Garvin Garvey house, and nobody goes in that often, to my knowledge. And then I know when Mr. Marks was building, going to work on the Joyner property, that was my only comment to him was, please, whatever you do, whatever retail application you may have, at least make it something that the public can not just walk on the exterior and look at the building, but come inside it and see what it was at the time. That's as much history as you can get right there. So I throw that out there. I don't know what the use will end up being, but it would be nice if it did have some form of public access into the building.
Okay, and that gives us some clear ideas of what we may need to do in the future to make that accessible.
Yes. When we're talking kind of shyly about the percentage that we might be able to preserve, I have a different opinion. I think we should try and replicate what was there and not think about what we lost. Let's build back what was there.
And we can come back with cost estimates for you on that, once we get a little bit deeper into some structural analysis on what potential a rehabilitation, correct term? Versus a rebuild, price per square foot, so that you have real dollars and figures on that. We can get that for you.
To follow up with what you said, our discussion has been, we want to make sure that what's there is representative of the Sarah Riley Hood property when it's done.
So I'll tie it up a little bit. I don't know that we know the use yet, and it sounds like you're gonna workshop it again. I would be very careful of code use. When you have so many residents around, they're gonna start feeling like people have another access to come to their house another way.
Okay.
So I would just caution you, residents, school children. And I agree, I've been back there a ton of times. I know the lady that lives to the left of it, I hadn't seen water back there yet. And I know it's code, but I just hadn't seen water there, so I don't even know how you get out. But, think of that.
Okay.
I think those residents are fearful all around, front and back are fearful. We're gonna have another venue for parties and alcohol and bands, and I would caution, just personally, let's err on the side of not trash, just everything. It is a fabulous home with amazing stories that lived inside that home. I don't know that we could put another family up against this family with all the success they had. Michael C. Riley, and I know y'all love to know, but you know, it's a lot of history, and let's not lose that. And I agree with Dan. How do we get in there? So whatever it's going to be, down the road, we're going to have nonprofits. We're going to have people that can help us with tours one day. Right now, we just don't. We have the Hayward House, and we have us, and we have a Garvin Garvey house that never gets showed. So I think we're evolving into more groups that would want to maybe rent it or something.
Keep that vision in mind.
So passive, don't forget family history. We spent a lot of money in that Garvin Garvey house. We can replicate this house again. I know we can. 5-foot ceilings and all.
I'll fit it.
6-foot ceilings.
I'd like to add on, I agree, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to spend $50,000 or $100,000 mothballing if our intent in the end is to reconstruct, to demolish and reconstruct. I would think we would want to move forward with, documenting what is there, how it's built, and get all of that instead of spending tons of money to save something that we're gonna put in a dumpster. I'd much rather see, if we're gonna tear it down and reconstruct it,
Yeah, I don't think that's where he was going though.
I think that's what you said, right, Fred?
Not quite. I wanted to make sure that we catalog what is there and replicate it.
Right, well, I agree with that, that's what I'm saying.
What I took, and I think you're going similar paths, just different words, is similar to what's being done at the Bruin home. Salvage what you can, but make sure that what's gonna be done
The
is.
Joyner home? I'm not going there. You're talking about the Joyner home?
He said Bruin.
He said Bruin, there isn't a Bruin.
Yeah, there is.
Bruin Road, sorry, at the corner where where they salvage the windows, the doors, or they came and they're salvaging what they can, but what's gonna be, the end result is gonna be what was there previously. It may be partially new, partially what we can salvage, but it's gonna be representative of the Sarah Riley Hood topography.
I would only say go toward more of what Pepper's Porch is gonna be like, where they hired a professional company that has,
Correct.
not because that was demolished. I don't wanna see this demolished. That would cause a lot of heartache with a lot of people in this town. You know, that's.
And that totally.
That's what I mean. It's
Okay,
that kind of-
good.
Yeah, professional. No, we're gonna make sure it's done right, just like we did with Garvin Garvey with Sparkboat.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, if it's something worth saving, I'm all about that, but no need to wait 5 years to save something that's rotten and every day, and the termites are active, as you said. It is only gonna get worse every week, month.
And that'll be a priority to address.
I hope this is closer than 5 years. And are you gonna demolish that back soon? Is that already budgeted to get that back part off?
So as far as budget, no, that was not in the budget for this year. What we had this year was $45,680. And that was for the surveying and doing the initial master planning. And we've already outlaid some of that and bringing in matters for the assessment. We'll work with finance to figure it out.
There's some steps that we'll have to take before we can get there, but we gotta figure out, we can have the conversation about the financing for that. But we need to have Metters or whoever come in and help us figure out what that's gonna look like, so we don't take that portion off and do more damage to the other. So there's gonna be some work that's gonna have to be done there before we know exactly what that cost is gonna be.
But the passion that we are having toward the Sparkhope Cottage, we can have the same passion toward this home.
Correct.
With creative financing. I just don't wanna see it fall away either, but we have to have that same love for, I would put this house up against it, with the stories inside that.
That's why we bought it, was the historical, the story, not the structure. I mean, the story of the structure, but not the value of the structure as far as.
So in order to mothball it, you're still gonna have to, I would assume if you haven't done it already, you're gonna have to go ahead and put a canopy over and have it fumigated, aren't you?
We'll have to do pest control and whatever method they use to do that, which would probably be tenting or a canopy or something. That would be part of one of the first steps we would have to do. And then stabilize the structure from there. Now you can remove the back portion of the building and still mothball. The only question is going to be when you remove that back half, then what happens? Because we're not quite sure how the structure is put together.
So the back structure isn't causing any additional pain to it. You can termite all of it.
You can termite it all.
And we
In
get
fact-
closer and we know it could qualify for ATAX or it could qualify for whatever,
Right.
then we can go through that process.
That's right.
Okay. Do you get what you want from us?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. We're gonna go ahead and move forward with the immediate infestation. Obviously, we need to do that regardless. And we'll work with Metters to get a little bit more detail on what might be salvageable, what could potentially go into future uses. And we'll come back and workshop with this perhaps in April. And we'll come back then as well between what we see as potential square footage rehab cost versus a reconstruction. so that we can start to make those decisions. And, yeah, I think so.
When you come back in April in your workshop, would you have some conceptual ideas of, the land that's there that everybody's talking about and surveys indicate? Would you have some kind of drawings or something indicating that's what might be possible?
Yeah, I think we can do that, help spur conversation. Definitely, Pat's been working on it.
Now, we know we have a serious financial commitment to reconstruction. So all these other ideas and concepts about what to do with the rest of the property should be secondary to.
The structure itself is the priority. Yes, sir. Very clear on that.
Keep the word tourism involved somewhere.
Anything with
It
the historic
opens up more.
designation is
It's part of heritage and
Part of
cultural
that.
tourism.
in our economic.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So for the many of you who are now here and thinking that our council meeting should have started at 5, we started at 4 this month, and we had executive session, but again, it was usually longer than normal. This time it's shorter than normal. So we kind of played around our agenda a bit because we wanted everyone here that wanted to be here to listen to some certain presentation. So we are going to try to get back to normally go back to presentations, celebrations, and recognitions, because I see the principal here, for our student of the month. And I think I saw a student come in. Is that back there? So let's get everyone up front, and parents included, and we will talk about the student of the month. This is the proclamation. So we have Isaiah, is it Shelvin? Shevlin. Who is this? Asher Wright. Oh, we have 2. Oh, we do, Michael.
Remember, we didn't have one in December.
That's right.
This one
Asher,
was delayed.
Asher, where are you going?
What about that way?
And if you're wearing a mask, so if you were not comfortable with me not wearing one, I'll give you a thumbs up. I like your hat, by the way. Yeah, you look very smart. Yes. No one back here knows what that means. So the student of the month, I always say this because they're just amazing. Gosh, an administrator ago put together the student of the month, the character trait, a very big focus on character development. And so each cluster, ours is the largest, and I can't even guess how many now, probably 15 or 16,000 kids from elementary to high school can all nominate a student. And so Asher, you're part of a really big crowd. When you're one middle school of 3, and we have 2 high schools, and we have 7 elementary, if you count River Ridge. So it all bundles up, and each of the clusters gets a student of the month. So you're one of, I don't know how many clusters we have, but we think ours is the most important, which is Bluffton. You have been picked from all of those kids to be here. So we like celebrating this, and we think it's very important. So your trait was courage and tolerance, and your principal took the time out of her night, out of her super busy day. She's so proud of you. So
your assistant principal. and your
we're
guidance
assistant,
counselor.
oh, there you go, Laura, guidance counselor, your assistant principal. So you stood out amongst them with that trait. So who wants to talk about that?
I'll do that and Mom. can
How,
jump in.
how did that happen?
So, a couple of years ago, Asher was diagnosed with cancer. So he has been away from school for a little while. He came back about 1.5 years ago and has met that head on, trying to make sure he's on grade level with his peers. He still has to go out occasionally to still receive treatments and everything else at USC, but he's not scared of that. He knows it, he faces it, and he's really bold about saying this is what I have and what I need and what I can and cannot do. And so he has taken on the fact that while he's young, he's gonna face a battle, he's gonna win. So that courage is one that I don't think a lot of adults have.
But who in here has that?
That little tiny body has a whole lot.
Yeah, you can teach us a lot, Asher.
Anything you wanna add, Mom?
Oh, that's okay. You can speak through tears.
Very strong, as our hero.
What grade are you in, Asher? Second grade. I would have probably said 4th.
Tall.
So, well, we're honored, and we can all learn truly. I tell everyone every time this happens, we can learn more from the students that are here than we can learn from each other, because y'all are our future leaders, so. If you ever wanna run for council or mayor, this could be your seat one day. So we do a nice certificate that you can get framed, so you hold on to that. And then we also give out these coins. Do you know anything about a coin? You know these challenge coins? Maybe our new chief could get you a challenge coin. You want to tell us about the challenge coin?
So we give out challenge coins to young men just like you, who are brave and courageous. And so anywhere you go, we don't give them out to too many people. So anywhere you go, you can take it out and show it off to all your friends.
And I was at an event. I think it was Clemson. And there was a young guy, and he was trying to get, I think coaches are doing it now, trying to trade a challenge coin. And I said, we have challenge coins. So this is really cool. This is kind of the new trading thing for kids. So this is for you. And we don't get these out often either. So that is for you, Asher. So who else wants in the picture?
No, we're good.
Okay. Council can photobomb if they want to.
I always duck.
All right, you ready?
Steve, wait a minute.
You can pull it. We'll hold it. Okay. Ready? All right, I got it. Thank you.
All right, let me do one first.
Let me do one for us.
Okay.
Me, 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 me.
1, 2.
Anything to say? What's your favorite subject in school?
You can say
English, recess, lunch,
Jim.
nothing, you just like school. Well, I put you on the side. You like science? Very cool. Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I don't have germs, but here, let's do this. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we want to see more of you, Asher. Y'all have a good first year. Next is Isaiah here. Is the other one here? Is Michael C. Riley here? Of course. Okay, hi y'all. You know what, I'm gonna hold that. And we'll come,
Because they confirmed.
Okay, thank you all. Next we have, is the chamber ready? Are y'all ready? Next we have the presentation of our designated marketing organization, the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. It's their fiscal year 23 quarterly report, and Ariana is here, and I think she has someone with her, and come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ariana Pernice, and I'm with the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to present our quarterly report. Happy New Year. Kind of feels a little short after all of that, so Asher was quite incredible. So kudos to him and all his fights ahead. So if I can, I will move quickly through July through September. Sorry. Or do I have to do something here?
You should be up there. Click on your, see where it says Bluffton presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Perfect. Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you again. So I'll move quickly through. We're going to do July through September, and we're going to start with our paid media partnerships. We were excited to talk about the town of Bluffton, and through that we did a partnership with Garden and Gun. It was a digital platform effort promoted through social media and their Talk of the South e-newsletter that ran through July through September. Again, it performed really well. Garden Gun has been a great partner of ours in the town of Bluffton. They love to talk about all things happening here. We also worked with the local palette, and that ran June through November. So it's kind of an extended piece, but we actually had the print ad, the social media, as well as the digital article there. So again, we continue to have great partnerships on the paid side of efforts, and we're seeing great results for those. So once we have the numbers tallied on the local palette, we'll be able to share those coming up. When you look at how we're doing overall with heads and beds, you know, we look at that as a 3-month snapshot, and what we're doing here is, you know, really tracking towards that September timeframe where we see things really pick up from a tourism perspective. But if we look at what's what we like to call kind of the piece that really seals in, is that the rate or revenue per available room is actually up 1.6% year over year within that September timeframe, which is really nice to see. But we haven't necessarily grown occupancy, so we've been able to hold occupancy, not grow it necessarily, but demand a higher rate from our visitors, which is great. So we're keeping that in perspective and trying to grow responsibly into the beds that have been allotted here for the town of Bluffton. When you look at how we're bringing people to the destination to understand all that we have to offer here in the town of Bluffton, we look at it through kind of that digital front door. And so we have our social media efforts where we're really the goal of really gaining followers in those platforms of Facebook and Instagram. And they love a great shot of the May River or of activities going on. So you can see some of those pieces here. People are engaging, and it's been great to see. The efforts through the social media, as well as our vacation planner, our paid media efforts, as well as our digital efforts, have really led people to the website. The standalone Bluffton website has done really well. This is the first time we're reporting year-over-year results. As you know, we had a year under our belt just a bit ago, so we're actually able to showcase how well it's done. We've worked in partnership for quite some time to have that standalone platform available to our partners, as well as to those who are interested in learning more about Bluffton and making it their trip for travel. So what you can see here is under sessions, that means how many times people are coming to the website to visit, was up year over year by 52%. And then the most important piece is, are they doing something when they get to the website? And they absolutely are. Here we see that they're actually clicking out to all of those businesses and partners that we have listed on the website, and that's up 45% year over year. So it's really great that they're coming, but are they doing something? And absolutely they are. So it's great. There's an average of 20 events held between July through September, as well as 865 active participants within those events. I'm not going to read them, but you can see them listed here. It was a pretty busy July through September timeframe with lots of ribbon cuttings and events held throughout that timeframe. So we've talked a little bit about about paid media. We're going to talk about earned media, and that's again where it's more relationship built. Again, we're not by any means paying for these efforts in public relations. You're keeping relationships up on the other side with editors and really working to have those articles, hopefully if they're fitting for the destination, be brought to life. And here you can see for the July through September timeframe, that was done quite well with 40 placements about the destination, which really, if you had to go out and buy that, which you wouldn't do, it is the $184,000 there that you would have to pay for that. And that's not what we did. We earned those, and they were placed across some really strong publications, which is nice to see. And I am still a big fan of having a beautiful print piece in my hand. I think that there's just something about that, and I think that the visitor is also saying that they love and enjoy that piece as well. And we've worked really closely with the town and our partners here in the community to make that piece very successful and requested. So you can see here that over the course of time, July through, so the time frame that I'm reporting on, July through September, that we had of just the official Bluffton Vacation Planner over 5,000 requested, and of the combined effort we had over 18,000. So all in all, a very successful quarter. Thank you for having me. I'll take any questions if there is any questions.
Questions? Just a reminder on the planner, we are keeping the section for businesses to be all business licenses in the town that fit your sections. We are continuing, I'm looking, Natalie's not here, but we are gonna do that.
Yes.
And who is helping you with Content Insider? Is our marketing group still giving feedback on, do an article here or
We're working closely on all of that, yes. So the town has been in lockstep with us along the entire way, reporting updates and opportunities that come by. We check in with Stephen and his team to understand I can rely on my partner Kayla back here, but she has been working closely, I believe, on bringing all that forward, and it should be here shortly. We had a very excited community of businesses that were excited to be in it, and actually grew the participation within the book by leaps and bounds. So we're really excited to see this coming year's piece.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. I don't see a student. So we will move on. Is everyone here, Will?
Yeah.
So item 5 under presentations is the annual Palmetto Bluff Grove Development Agreement update. This is Heather did it earlier. We have an annual requirement of active groups in development agreements to come in and do an update, and Palmetto Bluff has the most active group, and our others are done by Heather, just to give you an idea, how many of them are so dated, and we don't know where all those people are. So, Will, good evening. Hello.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. See if I can.
And when you start, just introduce, so Kim has it for minutes, and
Okay.
the people watching from wherever
Okay.
know who
Will,
heads they're looking at.
Will Howard with Palmetto Bluff. Jordan Phillips with South Street Partners.
And Will Culp with South Street Partners.
How are you? Okay. We're here for our annual development agreement update. And thank you for having us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So this is obviously a picture of Wilson Village. This is everyone's entry into Palmetto Bluff. You can see the May River Chapel in the background. Pictures of the South Street Partners here. Chris Randolph and Patrick Melton were unable to attend tonight, but so let's start with real estate sales and Palmetto Bluff sales that were closed. Obviously, 2021 was just almost an anomaly as far as the real estate sales. 2022 started fairly strong, but seemed to taper off in the last probably 2 quarters as far as overall sales. Even that being said, though, Palmetto Bluff managed to have $315 million in sales in 2022. So we were still, again, we were trending up except for that anomaly of 2021. And the issue we're running into is inventory, as you would know, Lisa, and other council members may be aware of. But it's inventory, resale inventory within Palmetto Bluff is sub 3% of the 800 completed homes, and we'll get to some stats about the balance of the new home construction, but it's just still remains very tight, and that will impact future sales volumes. Palmetto Bluff sales closed. So again, 205 closings in 2022. But you look at the price, the average price per home or property was obviously up because we were, if you go back, we weren't far off $315 million with 205 closings versus $391 million in 2021, but we had 372 closings. Cumulative COs, I actually got an update on this slide after we put the presentation together. We added 2 COs today. So as of today, we are at 902 for the number of COs issued within Palmetto Bluff. Go ahead. I was going to say the most impactful number is the 451 homes under construction or in DRB. It's just a tremendous amount of activity behind the gate. Yeah, 283 under construction. So there is construction has not slowed down at all, and 168 that are in DRB seeking a permit. So as far as our review of 22 and then what we have planned for 23, our 2023 product release, we just got our development permit for Block 5 in Moreland Forest. That's 38 lots. We are preparing our subdivision application so that we can plat those for release here shortly. And we anticipate submitting for a subdivision by the end of January. In addition to that, we have an additional 81 lots in Block M4 of Moreland Forest that are actually in the permitting stage with the town. We are currently under stormwater review. And after we receive our stormwater review, then we'll submit our final plan for approval so that we can get those 81 lots permitted for release as well. In addition to that, we have and we'll get into it a little bit further with the Montage, but we are expanding the existing branded residential product that is across the street, if you will, from the Montage. We have amended that approved development plan to add 8 additional lots, and we'll be building those homes once we get our final approval using our Palmetto Bluff Builders Program. We have a conditional permit from the town. We're just waiting on CZC with the state to give us our final permit, and then we'll move forward with developing those 8 additional homes in the branded residential product. I'm sure all of you, anyone that has visited recently, we have so many people that visit Palmetto Bluff just to eat at Buffalo's, and it's been closed for some time now under renovation. We are anticipating a mid to late February reopening after we invested over $1 million in the renovation for Buffalo's. The shooting clubhouse, I've got some information and some slides on that, but we finished construction of a new clubhouse for the shooting club. We also upgraded the course. We have actually separate courses now. We have we call the members loop. We have a super sport. Any of you that are into shooting, it's a different format. You get of shooting. We've got 6 stations of sporting clay super sport. We have a FETAS course. We've added an archery range. We've added trap and skeet now. And then we have 6 additional stations that we call our like club, like for the Montage visitors who may not, be very active shooters, maybe first time shooters. We've got 6 stations that are set up more towards the beginning shooters. Another project that I am very active in right now is our 9-hole golf course. We were recently permitted through the town to begin construction, and we are currently clearing and grubbing and stumping and getting ready for our golf course design build team, King Collins. They'll be coming in to start their earth moving and shaping of the golf course by the end of mid to end of February. They'll be on site. And I've got some additional slides moving into the presentation. Our marina is actively under construction. The 50 slips that we have permitted under our marina permit. Of those 50 slips, we currently have all of the floats have been installed. Larry, I don't know, I'm sure you're up there once or twice a week up the New River. But you can, so we have all the floats installed. They have all piles are driven for the floats. And we will be finishing the pier head. So we have all of the precast. The piles are driven for the pier head. We have all the pile caps are in place. And by the end of the month, we'll actually start setting all the concrete panels to build the formal pier head for the marina itself. We'll get into a little bit further now that we have actually received your blessing to development agreement amendment to move forward with dry stack storage on Big House Island in conjunction with the marina. We've actually we've engaged a consulting team to start the design of the dry stack, and we're working on site layout for Big House Island on how we can do that. In addition to our 9-hole golf course, we have the Anson, what we're right now just referring to as the Anson 18-hole golf course. We have engaged a consultant and a golf course architect there. Is that just public knowledge now?
We haven't paid for that.
Yes,
more or less.
It is now, right?
Well, everyone knows we've engaged a consultant, but we haven't. We're not really releasing details on who we're working with yet. But we are excited to move forward and have another golf course in our portfolio. And lastly, the Palmetto Bluff Builders that we touched on in our update last year. Currently we have 5 houses under construction with Palmetto Bluff Builders. 2 of those have already sold, and I believe they sold within 10 days of release. And we currently, of the 5, we have 5 under construction. We have 2 more. You know, we have to go through the same DRB process for those homes, just like any other home builder. We have 2 more that are in the kind of design and permitting stage that will be starting soon. Do you have anything to add? Kind of hard to see here. Does this pointer still work, Kevin? Maybe? Yeah. So just this is an outline. As you can see, all of our development, you know, we've got Wilson Village and Moreland, River Road that have all been built out, and now we're starting to move south towards Moreland and then down to Anson and Big House Island. So you can see the Buffalo's renovation up top, the branded residential expansion. The 9-hole course is in the area that we refer to as Crossroads, just outside of the Moreland Village. And then moving south, we've got blocks M4 and M5. In association, I didn't bring this up, but in association with the 9-hole course, we're actually expanding our inland waterway to allow anyone with a boat and like an electric boat on the waterway would be able to access our 9-hole course via boat should they choose to do so. One of the large projects that we have, it will be a almost multi-year project once we get it permitted, is our actually marketing, what we're referring to the marketing road to Anson. Right now, our access to Anson and Big House Island is through the gravel rock roads that we will use primarily for construction, but we're going to build a new road to Anson and Big House Island. That's in the permitting stages. We're in the stormwater review for that as well. And we projected to have our permit in March to April of this year.
Is that the yellow?
That's the yellow line, yeah. So that line branches off just before Moreland Forest and winds all the way down through areas, what we refer to as Stayus, all the way down to the crossing here to Big House Island.
It's about 5 miles, and it will have the associated super trail and all the underground infrastructure associated with it.
Yeah, we'll be pulling all the water, sewer, and utilities.
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, we'll be pulling that south as we go. We actually installed overhead power to Big House Island so that we have power for the marina. We installed that along the construction road. It will go underground once we get to Big House Island. And then as we build our way north out of Big House Island, we'll pull that underground power up north and loop it all in together somewhere in the middle. So here's an outline, concept, we'll call it a concept plan of the shooting club. And what I was talking about is we've refined this loop course now. We've upgraded the landscaping, we've upgraded the shooting stands. We have put in the Super Sport course, which is the 6 stations that run right along here. And then we have the additional club course that we have, a little easier setup for some beginning shooters. We've added track and skeet. We have an archery range now. We have the FETAS course. So that was a tremendous, a lot went on in that shooting club that nobody was aware of almost until it was finished and they got out, and it's just turned out great. Updated the clubhouse. We now have retail available within the clubhouse, retail clothing, shelves obviously, I believe we are a Beretta dealer now. What's the program referred to actually? But yeah, we are a full Beretta dealer and have all their clothing and products available in the clubhouse. Here's our 9-hole golf course that we're so excited about. What's going to be so unique about this is, as you can see, we're going to create that. The blue is the inland waterway that we're going to expand up to the north to allow water access to the course. And we have the course right now, that elevation is about elevation 25. The elevation in the inland waterway, the water elevation is set at 10.5. So that's going to allow that designer, he actually is going to make some pretty severe cuts to get down to that elevation. And then it's going to use all of that cut to fill and make all of these large berms and dunes that you see. Some of them up to elevation 50 plus. So here, in the low country, we're going to have quite a bit of elevation change within a small amount, within that 50-acre parcel. The other very unique thing about this, and it's hard to see here, but this will actually be designed as a reversible route. So it could play clockwise one day, 1 through 9. You could play clockwise one day, and then to mix it up, if they choose to do so, they could actually route it and play it counterclockwise the next day. Montage Residential. This is a picture of one of their existing homes in the Montage Residential program, and we're going to be adding 8 additional homes and extending the Great Lawn in between. The Buffalo's renovation, just a few pictures of what we're doing inside. We've actually added covered patio outside. Inside, it was gutted to the studs and completely redone. Kitchen was completely upgraded. New electrical, new grease trap, all new kitchen equipment. There's been a redesign of the bar and the interior. So we are all extremely excited for that reopening sometime in February.
Is that for residents only? Or?
No, that's open to the public.
Same as before.
Yeah.
I used to love to go there.
Yeah.
There were all sorts of issues, as all of you are probably aware. That was a bookstore, and then a coffee shop, and then it became a restaurant. And so the amount of issues that history presented from storage, from delivery, there were just a lot of issues that had been kind of band-aided until it could no longer be band-aided.
I'll be there February. I'll wait till this first round goes through. I'll do the 15th.
Again, Palmetto Bluff Builders, 5 homes under construction, 2 more in the pipeline, and big plans for that build and sell product. They have taken off and they're doing great. Sure, all of you are interested in the Montage Palmetto Bluff. Got these figures from John actually this morning. 2022 was the 8-year anniversary of Montage at Palmetto Bluff. They continue to see an overall revenue increase in 2021, even though their occupancy was down just a little bit from the year previous. They did introduce, Mayor, I know you've been to the Buzz, to the coffee shop. I think I asked you if you'd been out there. I was going to take you for a cup of coffee. You said you'd already been there. But
I don't think so.
that is so we have the Montage within the River House. They opened Buzz Coffee Shop.
I have not been there.
They opened a new speakeasy downstairs in the old wine cellar, and the River House restaurant, and all of those open to the public. Increased their village home participation to 54 from 40 from the previous year. And it looks like they are slowly catching up on all the missed weddings during the closures of COVID, because they managed to have a record 85 weddings on property last year. A tax that Montage paid to the town of Bluffton $1.82 million. So that is summary, and that's our update in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions.
I'll look your way first. Questions, thoughts, comments?
No.
Questions, thoughts, comments?
Nice presentation.
Good to see all of you.
We always get it, so we can have it, in our archives, so can you make sure Stephen gets
I
this?
sent it to Kim.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
One comment I did want to mention, because I know it came up last year, we are holding another town hall at Palmetto Bluff for our community and property owners that next week.
17th.
Yeah, next week's assessment, so it's something we will continue to do and do very often, so what did you all?
Well, I believe you, we had asked also about our mobile town halls with Palmetto Bluff at some point, and that's, staff will be calling you about that.
We would love to entertain it.
And that's just an across the board way to get to know the town better.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.
No other questions, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
for kind of working through our agenda with
All right,
us.
thank you.
I'm gonna move to public comment, so I think we've been here long enough. Do we have public comment?
We don't have any.
We don't have.
I don't have any.
Okay, and public comment is closed. Communication from council and manager. Is there anything anyone on the dais wants to say to whomever's watching us?
I'm good, Mayor.
Likewise.
Mr. Timmer, celebrated his wife's birthday.
I'm good. Thank you.
I hope everyone who's watching, if you haven't met him, will get to know him. He's Chief Joe Babkowitz. Welcome. Excited to see what your year brings you. So thank you very much, and I won't tease you about your dancing. We do have Martin Luther King Holiday Monday. Please, again, it's a holiday, so please come out. It's a great walk, and they have a fabulous program with young people. Also, before anyone leaves, Will.
I'm all ears.
It's a council meeting. Will. Okay. Y'all, I'm fine with talking, but no, Mr. Moretti, sign that. Remember, I told you, sign that sign-in sheet. Oh, you haven't heard leaving. So there's a sign-up sheet outside, and it is for our next item, which is going to be the information from Low Country Council of Governments. It's very important because I can't even begin to tell you the millions of dollars we have put into projects to help everyone in Bluffton feel like they belong. And a lot of it's been water, sewer, or sewer installation. It just goes on and on. So please sign on that sheet because it gives Michelle the ability to say, this is how many people were here tonight. Please, no one's going to cold call you. Just please sign it before you leave, especially after this presentation. So we are ready for our public hearing. We have Michelle Knight with Low Country Council. No, we don't. Wait a minute. Where are we? No, we're not. Yeah, we are. Yes. Consideration. It's item 11. Consideration of town of Bluffton needs assessment for housing, public facilities, and economic development. And we have Michelle. I saw Kim popped up. And we have Kim. So you could come forward and we'll get your presentation, and then we'll do the round of public comment for this particular item.
Yeah, that'll work.
Wait a minute,
Because this
where
was
are we?
advertised at 6, we just need to make sure that we provide the opportunity at 6 p.m. for anybody, because it is public
Oh,
hearing.
absolutely. I was gonna stop it, make sure 6 was here for the comment period.
But that worked for
Even
me.
though we
That's
gave you
fine.
only 5 minutes. You can-
I got a little bit more 5 minutes tonight.
You
got your 5 minutes.
But you do have to, you can go through both presentations, and then we can go back to public comment.
Okay.
So you were here for both item 1 and 2. So start with 1, Michelle.
All right. Good evening. I'm Michelle Knight. I know y'all know me, but for the audience out back here, we are here tonight for the 2023 Needs Assessment Public Hearing for the town of Bluffton. This program statement is literally hot off the press. We got it yesterday. Going to do our normal advertisement. If anyone from town staff or town council has someone approach them to tell them that they feel, or to tell you that they feel they have been discriminated against in the sale and rental of housing and residential real estate transactions, or in the provision of brokerage services, they can call us at Low Country Council of Governments, and we will take their information and forward it on to the appropriate groups regarding the matter, so that it can be investigated if need be. This year, low to moderate income for Beaufort County, all of our community development block grant projects have to benefit a majority of low to moderate income people, or address a slum blight situation, or address an urgent need. For Beaufort County, as of June 2022, a 4-person family, their income would have to be under $69,350 a year to be income qualifying. That number will go up or down based on the number of people in the house. And for 2023, we are expecting to receive across the state $19.7 million in CDBG funds for the South Carolina Department of Commerce to divide out among basically 3 major programs. The action plan that I mentioned that was hot off the press, the comment period for it is from yesterday until February 7th of this year. All comments should be submitted to Lisa Ross. Her email address is here in the presentation, as well as her mailing address. If there are things that you think maybe need to be considered for that action plan that aren't in it, we certainly encourage you to provide written comments. And also, if you would like to go to a public hearing at the state level, they are having one on January 25th at 2 p.m. at the South Carolina Department of Commerce offices. That is at 1201 Main Street, Suite 1600, and I think it's going to probably be on the 15th floor. But they are having a public hearing for this program statement. The 3 broad program areas that Commerce will be dividing that $19.7 million among will be community development, business development, and regional planning. We'll get into the meat of it. The community development program will have the lion's share of that $19.7 million, and they basically have 4 set-asides, well actually 5 set-asides that you can pursue different types of projects in. The first set-aside is community infrastructure. There's $10.9 million available in that. Application request deadlines are March 17th, and application full deadlines are April 17th. This is our water, sewer, drainage, roads project, of which Bluffton has utilized tremendously in the past. There's a maximum amount of $1 million that you can apply for now under this program, and waivers can be looked at under certain circumstances in that program to up that max even further. Community enrichment has $3 million set aside for it. This is our fall facilities set aside. Our application request deadlines are August 15th, and our full deadlines are September 15th. Basically, in this program, there are 3 state priorities that they look at. One is increasing economic competitiveness. The second priority is addressing education and workforce development issues. And the third priority is to address safe and healthy communities. And some of the things that are listed there are examples of the types of priorities that we can do under, or the types of projects that we can do under the set aside. So we could look at things like streetscape, we could look at demolition of what we call white elephant buildings that are owned by a public entity. We could also do demolition of residential structures that are considered attractive nuisances that are vacant under this program. Fire substations, fire trucks, libraries, a number of facility type projects. The maximum funding here is $750,000. That is an increase from last year. which is probably a long time coming due to construction issues, because there are not many buildings that you can do now for $500,000 and haven't been for a long time. Then our next set aside that we're going to talk about is local priorities. There's $1 million allocated here. This is what used to be special projects. They basically renamed this. And our priorities here, their fall deadline request, again, August and September. But our priorities here are to look at economic development, priority or projects or things that support economic development that aren't eligible under the business development program. And then there's also public health and safety type projects. We can still do sidewalk projects under this set aside. We can still do some historic preservation under this set aside. The new thing that they've added in here is this resiliency and narrowing the digital divide. And that, I think, basically, we haven't been given a lot of instruction or direction about that, but I think basically what they're looking for there is trying to bring broadband into rural areas that may not have access to that now. Maximum funding amount is $300,000, so that's gone up slightly there. Our next set aside I want to talk about is neighborhood revitalization. This again is a fall deadline. You actually have a project like this right now that we're going to do a public hearing on to close and hopefully do our monitoring tomorrow and wrap this up. So with this, you have to have a comprehensive plan for a neighborhood that's within walking distance of a commercial center, like your Goat Peak Schultz neighborhood is. We address multiple activities in it. It could be water and sewer or drainage infrastructure. It could be sidewalks, lighting, cameras. We could do some minor housing repair, meaning purchasing material for you to work on the exterior of the house with a nonprofit. We can do demolition and clearance of dilapidated or vacant properties that are attractive nuisances. And we can use a small portion of that money, possibly, if it's recommended in the plan, to address public services. So maybe have a crime watch program, that kind of a thing. Maximum for this set aside now is $750,000. It's gone up since y'all received money under this set aside. And the main reason for that is that we found that the infrastructure components of these projects tend to be very expensive. And as such, if you have a water or sewer need, you typically use all of the money toward that, and you don't have the option to do other activities, which the goal is to do multiple activities in the project. Last set aside we're going to discuss under community development is Ready to Go. This is our non-competitive program. Basically, you can pursue anything that's listed under community infrastructure or community enrichment. The idea being behind this, that you've got everything done but for having a check that you could start work within 60 days of a grant award. So you've done your environmental review, you've done all of your acquisition, you've done all of your due diligence, getting your permitting, your bid plans together, that kind of thing. And the project typically is something that cannot wait till a regular competitive funding round. So maybe you have some kind of a pressing water or sewer drainage issue that can't wait until next spring, and you need to work on it now, that kind of thing. All projects under the community development programs require 10% match. Bluffton's always been very good at overmatching, and that's helped with their scoring in application rounds. The business development program has $2 million in it. This is non-competitive as well, just like our Ready to Go program. You basically make an application request and you have to turn it in 30 days later. But the idea in this program is that you're addressing or you're putting in public infrastructure to help new or expanding businesses that are creating jobs and investing in the community monetarily to be able to do the things that they need to do. That being said, typically this program maxes at $10,000 per job committed. Those companies that commit jobs and commit investment, they have to sign performance agreements with the state and with the town, stating that if they don't meet these commitments, that they understand that they may have to pay this money back. The jobs that are created here, 51% of them have to go to low to moderate income people, meaning these have to be the type of jobs, they call them CDBG qualifying jobs. 51% of them have to be the type of jobs that can be done with a high school diploma and a year's experience work. So while some of the jobs may be degree jobs, a lot of them are more skilled training jobs. And then finally, the remaining money of the $19.7 million, $500,000 of it goes into our regional planning program. That is money that's divided among the 10 COGs, of which Low Country Council of Governments is one, so that we can do these public hearings, we can meet with staff when there are projects that they want to develop, and also so we can host development days, which we'll have one of those probably late spring, early summer for this region. And then the remaining money goes to state administration and technical assistance to allow them to come down to meetings and help us develop projects as well. Opportunity zones are still under the scoring criteria, receiving bonus points when we compete for an application, so that's still in place, and performance thresholds are still in place. So basically, a community can have up to 3 active grants. If they have 2 open grants that are less than 30 months old, and only one of them is a neighborhood project, only one of them is a non-competitive project, and you don't have more than one project in the same neighborhood in your community, then you can pursue a final project to have 3 open. Lastly, the last 3 slides are about our Low Country Regional Home Consortium. In addition to ranking to NYCHR needs, we do ask that you consider what your housing needs are separately and get in touch with us. Our home consortium has 3 objectives: the rehabilitation of substandard housing, increasing accessibility to adequate and affordable housing, and supporting the development and availability of safe, decent, and affordable housing. We submit our action plan, just like the states do an action plan now for CDBG, to HUD in April. So if there are things that you think we should consider for your area while we're doing that, we ask that you get in touch with us in the next couple of months after you discuss that with your staff. And that's all that I have as far as our needs assessment.
Let me do public hearing and then we'll go to questions. Okay. First call for public hearing for item 11.1, which is the Town of Bluffton Needs Assessment for Housing, Public Facilities, and Economic Development. Let's get to public. Second call for public comment for this public hearing, item 11.1. Kim, did anybody sign up? Third and final call for public comment. The item under 11, public hearing and final reading of the Bluffton Needs Assessment for Housing, Public Facilities, and Economic Development. Public hearing is closed. Questions? We need to rank again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which we've done for many years. But are there questions of Michelle? And is that where we're going now, is to rank? Okay. Any questions?
I have one question there. On the 19 million that you mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, that is spread out through all 10 COGs, right?
That is spread out to all the non-entitlement communities in the state. I think right now, between counties and towns, there are a total of 17 entitlement communities, and they do not participate in this set-aside. In our region, the only entitlement community that we have is the town of Hilton Head Island, and I think they get roughly, I think it's around 200,000 a year, somewhere in that neighborhood. So they run their own program, just like the state does, and they set their own priorities, so they don't compete against us. And then I'd have to actually look them up and read them. I can give you a good guess of. I can probably hit 3/4 of them without.
Are they on your site? Are they on the LOCOG site?
They are actually
Can we
in
Google
the
and find them?
program description across the state. It's like Richland County, City of Columbia. In our region, the only 3 places that have been contacted that were eligible have been City of Beaufort, Town of Bluffton, and Hilton Head Island. And the City of Beaufort and Town of Bluffton right now have chosen not to be entitlements because they compete well in this program, and what they receive in grants is greater than their allocation every year.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that's probably way more than you
No,
want.
it's fine. Any other questions? We can always get with Michelle. I know we have in the past met with you on things. I have a lot of questions, but I won't re-ask them. I can get with you later. The list that we did last year was, you can see, was ranked 1 through 5. Maybe I'll ask this. Is there any want to change that? I think we've all learned they all have equal weight. We just have to rank them. And you can see we tried to stay the same until last year. And then we decided to flip it a little bit. Are y'all okay with how it was ranked in 2022? Or is there anyone who wants to make a change?
I'd like to see affordable housing, low to moderate income individual families and seniors go up, number 1.
Anyone, is that okay to put flip 2 and 1, right?
Right.
Is there any other thought? Okay, is there a motion to rank 2023 in order: affordable housing for low to moderate income individuals, families, and seniors; number 2, transportation and pedestrian safety; number 3, residential rehab of housing for safe and dry housing; number 4, infrastructure improvements, including water, sewer, and drainage; and number 5, restoration of properties or facilities of special value to the community.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. So next is number 2, which is closing out a program. So we're at public hearing for the performance and accomplishments for Goethe Schultz Neighborhood Revitalization. It's grant 4NR 18001.
And I've got to pull my glasses so I can read what I wrote. Anyway, in December 2018, the town of Bluffton was awarded $500,000 for the Goethe Schultz Neighborhood Revitalization Project. And in that project, we were to install sidewalks along Goethe and Schultz roads, along with some ancillary drainage, and install lighting in that area as well. The total project at the time was $974,000, with $500,000 being grant funds and the other $474 and change being local money that was provided by the town. This project was to benefit 524 people, of which 71% or 371 people were low to moderate income. At this point, we are substantially complete with the project. We had to do a project amendment to take out the sidewalk component of Schultz. And the reason for that was that there were too many utility conflicts along the sidewalk path that were discovered after we got construction underway. So we were able to negotiate to do some small drainage improvements to basically re-slope the ditches. I think that's the right word for it. I'm not an engineer, so I'm gonna basically clean that up, not maintain it, but basically clean it up. And we'd already done the lighting, we'd already done the sidewalks for Goethe. So our budget basically decreased by about $96,000. At this point, we've had our financial monitoring. We will have our program monitoring tomorrow, and we anticipate being able to easily close this before the end of this first quarter of the calendar year. If it doesn't close, it won't be because of anything going on with the town or the COG. It'll be a state issue or getting the contractor back out. But he's been told he can start with his punch list work.
I don't know that I've ever had this on an agenda. Is it because you changed the scope of it a little bit? Are we voting on this? Or are we just having a public?
We're just having a public hearing so we can hear about the accomplishments, what we did accomplish.
Okay.
You know, this is one, we haven't done one in a while, but it's one at the end of the project. If you recall, there are 3 points where we do our public hearings. We do the needs assessment for you to get your priorities in place. And then if we apply for funding, we do a public hearing for a project to tell you what we're asking for money for. And with this, we've received the money and we're telling you what we did with the money, basically.
And my understanding why this one's on the agenda tonight is they were coming for the community needs assessment one, the first one we did, and they normally would have had to schedule a public hearing here anyway. So we were able to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone by having the public hearing right now while we were doing the other.
Because the work is complete.
Well, let's open the public hearing. Kim, did anybody write in? First call for public hearing concerning the program performance and accomplishments for Goethe Schultz Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. Second call for public comment on the public hearing concerning the program performance and accomplishments for Goethe Schultz Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. Third and final call for public comment for this public hearing concerning program performance and accomplishments for Goethe Schultz Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. Public hearing is closed. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much for being here. And super. Moving on to formal items. Formal items, we start with Tracy. Consideration of approval for a contract awarded to vendor 8x8 for upgrade to town phone system. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's your first time.
Yes, I inherited this. So,
happily, it looks like.
yes, the current telephone system is now 10 years old. An RFP was issued earlier last year in March. We had about 25 respondents. 8x8 was voted the best vendor. So the staff is recommending that Town Council authorize the town manager to execute a contract with 8x8 Global Cloud Communications to upgrade the town's desk phone system in the amount of $177,339.40. Now that's over 5 years. It's a 61-month contract. In addition, staff requests a 10% contingency allowance to cover any unforeseen changes that may arise. And upon approval, we will get the contract signed, get it to the company, and begin scheduling and ordering of equipment.
Questions?
What happens at the end of the 5 years?
We will either have to do another RFP or execute a new contract. So then if we don't like them, then we'll look to move on.
So they expire, so to speak, at 5 years? Are we leasing them or
We are leasing, yes.
So this is a lease, not a purchase?
Yes.
And the reason it had to come in front of y'all is because over the 5 years, it will go over 100,000, but each individual year, it'll be under, it's like 25,000 per year.
Yeah. With the savings of about $20,000 per year for the town from the current system that we have.
Help me understand what are we purchasing?
We are getting telephones, and for those who don't want desk phones, we're getting headsets. And some users who have town-issued cell phones will be able to forward their desk calls to their cell phones, so their cell phones will actually become their desk phones through an app.
My last question.
Yes, sir.
I got rid of my home phone. Because cell phone is so convenient.
Yes.
Why are we still using desk?
Well, there's some people that prefer them. And remember, we've got like customer service and everything. So there's some areas that do need desk phones.
This also includes our fax and our office phone, like the conference rooms and all that kind of stuff as well. And also the maintenance of it.
Does it cover police as well?
Yes.
It's everyone. Yeah, I was gonna ask that, like, why are we spending this much money on, I mean,
Well, it's
I can
only
look
like
in my
$2,000
office and I
a
can
month.
find 25, I could give you funds, but, because nobody uses them, so.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, can you go back to that, because I don't have your,
Want me to go back?
That's good. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with 8x8 Global Cloud Communications for upgrade of the town's desk phone system? The agreement includes a commitment from the town of Bluffton for $177,339.40 and a 10% contingency to be paid from the appropriate town funds.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck using those funds.
Thank you.
Chris, do you use a phone? We're gonna do a little survey. You want a phone or a headset? You really want a phone. You really want it to ring.
You really want me to call you?
Yeah.
Wants to hear somebody.
That's everybody knows mine.
So we're up for consideration of a resolution in support of our elected state delegation requesting the introduction of legislation to allow local jurisdictions to establish a real estate transfer fee.
Yes, good
Yes.
evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to go around, through some background, some discussion items, and ask for your approval. So to go back to 1990, Hilton Head Island passed a real estate transfer fee. The reason for this was to purchase property and preserve property throughout the island. And I'll go more into that in a minute, but the fee is set at 0.25 of 1% of the gross sale price of a property, and it is liability to purchaser to pay that. So for example, on a $500,000 sale, it's $1,250. And in May of 2022, they extended this fee to December 31st of 2044. So their intent in their ordinance is defined as the intended that the majority of land set aside under this chapter shall be kept in perpetuity as close as possible in its natural state, and it shall not be overly invaded with permanent structures. It goes on to say that the purpose is to acquire land while it is still available to be held in perpetuity, or believed to be needed by the public in the future, and also to acquire already developed land or development rights in order to convert it to public use, restore open space, or redefine in accordance with the town's comprehensive plan. So that's how they define their need and use of those funds. The town of Hilton Head Island has collected over $87 million since 1990, and that was as of March of last year, so it's probably well over $90 million now. The town has used $76 million to purchase over 1,300 acres. So the state got involved in 1994, and they enacted South Carolina Code Section 6-1-70, which prohibited real estate transfer fees. So it prohibited any government entity from imposing a new fee on the transfer of real property. They did allow existing fees enacted prior to January 1st of 1991 to remain in place, and I believe Hilton Head Island is the only one that had that. So these are some of the things that the town of Hilton Head has documented as benefits that have resulted from this fee. Preservation of open space, public access to waterways, space for passive and active recreational needs, preserving wildlife habitat, protect environmentally sensitive lands, protect culturally and historically significant sites, provide more stormwater filtration, space for capital improvement projects, demand for property values have increased townwide, and reduced demand for other public facilities and service needs. So just to look at if we had something in place in town of Bluffton over the past 5 years, it's just 5-year comparison, we would have raised $15 million over the past 5 years. In 2021 alone, it would have been $5.7 million. So if you look at our land acquisition budget, that would have had a significant impact on what we've been able to do. And also, we did take a look at, could a case be made that the fee had some negative impact on real estate transactions over time. The best gauge we have is the housing price index, have national, state, and local level data on that. If you look at the U.S., since 1990, housing price index increased 290%, South Carolina is 277%, Hilton Head Island MSA is 365%. So, you know, this is not a scientific study, but just roughly gauging, there's no identifiable negative impact from the PV enacted. So in your packets, we included a draft of a letter we'd like to send to the state delegation, requesting that they take a look at this, allowing other jurisdictions to potentially enact their own fee.
Before questions, let me follow up on a couple of things. Hilton had asked several months ago to go to the state to see if they could add, I think it was this, or maybe it's the ATAX money.
The ATAX was affordable housing.
But I thought Scott Senator Davis said he could talk about this as well, that we could possibly add uses on this, because he's going about ATAX to include affordable housing. But when we met with Senator Davis, I think all of you had the opportunity to, and this was a point he is understanding now, and he can show that, and I'm a realtor, it has an effect real estate sales on Hilton Head. And buyer pays it, but there is a cap, and I double checked it, there is a cap of $6,000, so you can't sell $50 million property.
That's correct, yeah.
So
What?
it's a cap, so I don't know what equates to over 6,000. So $15 million property, you're gonna cap that at 6,000.
Gotcha.
But he didn't think we needed to do this, but of course we like to do things and get it in the record. And I've been talking about this for years, and we've had so many new people come in and out. People have forgotten that Hilton Head has this transfer fee. So that's just more of a background on our talk with Senator Davis.
The 85 million that Hilton had collected was what period of time?
Since 1990.
I mean, I almost wonder, and again, the numbers would be smaller, I almost wonder if this would have been a better method than the penny sales tax for the green space in some way. It gives you more local control, everything.
Well, it is gonna it's gonna take 2 years to get this through the state, and in 2 years that penny's gonna be gone.
Right.
So I think it's good just to be proactive on it, and Senator Davis felt like he could address it with the lobbyists for the real estate association. We have proven, it's proven over there. It didn't stop. It didn't inhibit. The buyer pays, growth pays for growth. Perhaps there's some way it could go to help other ways, but at least we know the list that they're working with. And I just think that's home rule and the ability for towns to be able to do this, and counties, and why not bring it up for discussion? We'll see what.
So when the legislator said that it was illegal for municipalities or for towns to charge it, were there anybody other than Hilton Head that was charging it?
The only ones.
They were the only ones. They went in 90, and then they made that determination in 91?
94.
94.
My guess is probably there were some others that were looking to do it, and they probably nipped it in the bud before.
And they didn't have enough track record, they didn't have enough data to show that it really did not inhibit, and I'm sure it's the lobbyists with real estate, so I'm sure that's what it is. But it doesn't burden the builder, it burdens the buyer, you know, and it's a transfer. Even if we used it toward open space or whatever, I just think it's a great tool.
You're gonna make that exempt for our affordable housing projects?
Well, that's the interesting thing, to see what else he can add to it for a use, if they would allow home rule. If this was something that delegation, that the state could change, then it goes in to municipal association, let them figure out the best uses for each town.
I'm fine with it.
Anyway. Questions? No more? Is there a motion to approve a resolution in support of a letter to Bluffton's elected state delegation to request the introduction of legislation to allow jurisdictions to establish a real estate transfer fee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Chris. You're up still. Next is item 3 under 13, formal agenda items, consideration of a resolution to authorize town manager to sign an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Bluffton, Beaufort County, Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority for the construction of the sewer infrastructure as part of Stony Crest, Palmetto Bluff Road. I should hand the gavel over to Larry for this.
Excellent. So this is a follow-up to the discussion we had during strategic plan. And this is the next step for us in pushing this project forward, to have a formal agreement between these jurisdictions that outlines how we approach the implementation of this project. So again, the purpose for this discussion is the IGA, and the IGA focuses on defining the scope, defining the commitment, and regardless of where the funding comes from, who will serve as the project lead, defining how much will each jurisdiction pay, and the tentative schedule. So I'll go through all of these. But first, the background. We know this very well, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But way back in May of 2017, staff first detected a human DNA behind the Stony Crest campground, and they've continued to test since then. And I think there's around roughly 45% positive test rate for human DNA in that area. So the preservation of the May River and surrounding watersheds was added to the strategic plan adopted by council and still remains there today. In FY21, we issued a $5 million GEO bond to address sewer and water infrastructure needs. This area was identified as a key source of fecal coliform contamination within the May River. It is unincorporated Beaufort County, so it requires coordination with the county as well as Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority, which is why we're bringing forward to an IGA. So this project was first approved by the town of Bluffton for our one-third of the project in FY22, and at the time it was just put in some money in for study costs. And in September of 22, the town and the jurisdictions jointly applied for the South Carolina Infrastructure Investment Program grant. This grant could potentially cover $5.9 million of the $7.9 million cost. As we just discussed before, we won't know about the results of this grant until February. So one of the things that we want to make sure we outline pretty deliberately and thoroughly is the justification for our participation in the program. And these whereases are addressed in the agreement. I'll briefly go over them here, but failing septic systems have been known to negatively impact public health, environment, quality of life, and economic growth. Parties to the agreement have all documented chronic leaks from septic tanks within the Stony Creek watershed. Fecal coliform from these leaks are having negative impacts on commercial fishing, ecotourism, and recreational-based businesses. And the May River Watershed Action Plan identifies elimination and proper maintenance of septic systems as key to protecting the water quality. So these are the three key terms that are included in the agreement that's within your packet. So the BJWSA will serve as a project manager of the project. Each jurisdiction will commit to the project regardless of the availability of grant funding. All non-grant expenditures will be borne equally. Any scope changes require approval of all parties. BJWSA's regulation requires property owners within 300 feet of public sewer to connect. It acknowledges some coordination with the county in helping to uphold that requirement. Not more than often than once a quarter, BJWSA will reconcile expenditures, provide backup to the county and town, and we will reimburse our share within 30 calendar days. And any unresolved disputes would go to mediation. So those are the key terms within that agreement. The tentative schedule was defined during the grant application process, and this was also included within the agreement. And final design is identified for March of 24, final permitting done by June of 24, the solicitation for bids September of 24, and a no later than construction start date of June 1st of 25. Any questions or discussion on the IJ?
Questions on this?
I have one, for clarity, and I've asked this multiple times. So it said there that Buford Jasper within 300 feet, there's a connection to it, have mandated. But there's no policy, I think I've asked if the county had no connection policy, is that still true?
That's correct, yeah.
So you can be without being within 300 feet, and you don't have to connect even if the line is out there on the highway near you somewhere, 302 feet, for example. Has there been any discussion with the county about passing a connection policy?
There's been discussion. It's not a commitment they could make in this IGA. So I think they will discuss it at a staff level and whether or not they want to put it forward to their council. I think the important thing is for the IGA to define a mutual commitment of all jurisdictions, a mutual commitment of funds regardless of grant funds, and a rough timeline. So that was the focus of this IGA primarily. I will say that the Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority does have the authority to charge fees regardless of whether they're connected to the sewer, and that's kind of their hammer for enforcing this.
And I believe that they have a hardship policy as well, I think. if
Yes,
I
and I
remember
believe
correctly.
they also have legal authority to condemn or seize property as well. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for Larry?
No, my only other thought was numbers, but I guess we just haven't gotten that far, so this is the first thing to, thank God and y'all and everybody else for finally moving somewhere. I wish it wasn't another 2 years before they start construction, but it, you know,
Well, who decided?
maybe it doesn't have to be 2 years, you know, maybe some.
Where did the dates come up? Who decided this? Because we've been talking about this for 5 years.
Yeah.
10 years. But so Loco, probably 5. Who came up with the dates?
Yeah, I think the dates were largely driven by Beaufort Jasper's schedule and in incorporating it within all the other projects, but I don't know if Ken.
No, you're exactly right. That's, as we were putting the SKIP grant together, that came from their engineer, as well as also taking into account what current projects of scope of this are taking them to get through with materials, permitting, and all of that. So they drove the schedule.
So the engineering could, you don't need materials to engineer those, so that started a little earlier than the rest of it could start a little earlier too. And they have the engineering starting, 15 months from now?
Design, they do at least have several MSAs in place already with design firms, so at least there's not the procurement piece to that. It's just a matter of them determining which one of their on-contract engineer firms would design it. So we had the conceptual design of this as part of the May River Watershed Sewer Master Plan, but there are no engineered designs for a vacuum system. And so that's where it's at. It just has not gone through engineered design at all yet.
And they did update the estimates of the project during that process, and I believe it's $7.9 million for total project cost.
And the scope, I believe, includes somewhere around 130 to 150 connections.
I think let's push them. And where does it lie with Beaufort? Has Beaufort just already signed this?
We are the first ones to approve it. We've received edits from Beaufort Jasper. We're working with finalizing some edits with Beaufort County. And their goal is to have it on their next meeting so that we can get this done. But we are the first ones that will be pushing this through and approving it. And that's why the language in there kind of gives some flexibility so long as it doesn't materially change it, because we are anticipating some edits from the county that may address a few things that won't change the scope, the schedule, the financing, but just in case there's many edits, we don't have to bring it back.
And any other questions?
I'd like to go on record to support what Larry is concerned about the timeline, because being that this is three entities that's working on this, it's like it should get a little bit more priority time-wise. Okay.
Is the timeline in the contract, or is that just for your presentation to give us where you think it is?
It is in the contract.
I would work on, I would try to tweak that if y'all are gonna go back to make it sooner.
And I think those are rough, like conservative estimates, but we're gonna push as much as we can. But again, with them being the project manager, we can push them so far, but we're beholden to them to run the project. But we'll push the dates as much as we can.
What time will push
And
you?
we'll do the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if y'all wanna reach out to your counterparts there, we can do the same.
Anything else? No. Is there a motion to approve a resolution in support of an intergovernmental agreement among Town of Bluffton, Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority, and Beaufort County to equally share the cost to transition sewer connections away from septic in the Stony Creek watershed, so long as the intergovernmental agreement does not materially differ from what was presented herein?
So, second.
You want to move it and second? Any discussion? We'll see this before we die, I know. Any other
You want to bet?
I'm counting on it. It's, my motto is do good things and get things done. And this is
Amen.
it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. How fast this young lady? Are you here for a class?
I'm just here to just observe and this is.
Well, welcome. What is your name? Valerie? And are you in school or you just look really young?
I go to Boston High School. I'm a junior.
I saw the capstone, but I wasn't sure. Well, if you need anything signed, we'll sign it, and if you need us to send your teacher a letter that you stay through the whole entire meeting, from 4 o'clock on, we will do that.
This is punishment.
What did you think
I
about,
thought it was very informative. Had a lot of things done.
we'll bring more with you next time.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. Oh, consent agenda, so sorry. Was gonna be last. There's a consent agenda that we have every month, and if there's anything you want to pull off of it, all of it is very informative. So for you, the department's reports, it talks about everything we really go over and what's going on in the community. The town manager report. Is there anything y'all want more information on to pull off before we vote on the consent agenda?
Just remember item 6 was
Six
is
removed
removed. That's already
during
been removed.
adoption.
Okay, so items 1 through 5, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
I second.